This is a download from Rutland Radio.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Rutland Radio podcast from rutlandradio.co.uk. This is where you can hear the best bits from the last week. It's Rutland Radio at breakfast time. I'm Rob Pisani. Into the new year with plenty on in January, including Uppingham Theatre Company's production of Beyond the Pale. You might remember Beyond the... Hang on a second. Yes. You might remember Beyond the Fringe back a good number of years ago. Well, that was its inspiration, and its writer Henry Daw of Uppingham Theatre Company joins me this morning. So, Henry, tell us a little bit about Beyond the Pale. What are people going to experience if they come along?
Well, the subtitle of the play is A Plotless Play of Pun and Pottiness. So there is no character development, really. There's no storyline. The whole thing is a vehicle for gags, really. Puns and quips and little pieces of nonsense. So we're hoping that people will just accept it for what it is. It's very different from your usual kind of one-act play where you at least get some sort of storyline. This is really an excuse for bringing in some choice gags. And the idea of the comparison with Beyond the Fringe, going back to the 60s, is really to try and give people a hook to grasp onto, really. Where they succeeded with satire, we hope to do so with wordplay.
And actually, it's a Fringe event of its own, because you can see it in Uppingham weeks before you're taking it to the Leicester Comedy Festival. That's
right, absolutely. We're doing 6 productions in Uppingham next week, 7th to the 10th of January, and then we're doing 2 performances in Leicester on the 14th and 15th of February. And all the details are on the show's website, which is beyond-the-pale, PAIL.com.
We'll put that link on, and obviously we'll put all the performance details on the Rutland Radio What's On section of our website as well. Giles Brendreth quoted on your leaflet. What's his connection?
Well, I knew what a wordsmith he was. He's on lots of different panel games and is a great fan of puns and wordplay. So I thought, well, if I send the script to him, I'll see whether he is able to come up with a nice opinion on it, and let's see whether he's able to let us use that to help market the play. And luckily, he did like it and has allowed us to use the quote, which we hope will encourage people to come, particularly at the Leicester Comedy Festival, where we have so much competition for an audience, really.
So how big's the cast on Beyond the Pale?
We've got 7 of us in it, Rob. I'm taking a part, and Steve Green, who many people will perhaps know in the area, has done a lot of local acting. He's playing the other main part. We play ourselves, actually, as 2 actors, and then we have 5 other actors locally: Jonathan Marcus and his daughter Holly from Uppingham, Gillian Kendon from Bourne, Tim Montagnon from Uppingham, and David Lovell-Brown from Stamford, who's done a lot of Tolthorpe over the years, so a lot of people may know him as well.
So some very familiar faces, and remind us of when it's on and how to get tickets.
Right, well, next week in Uppingham, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 7th to the 10th at 8 o'clock in the garden room of the Falcon Hotel in the Marketplace. And then we're also doing Saturday and Sunday matinees at 2:30. And tickets can be bought either in person at the Falcon Hotel or online at wegottickets.com, and they're just £5 per person, blanket price. Certainly the one that we'd like to push at the moment is the Sunday evening, because that is our last performance, and it'd been really nice to end on a high.
So £5 to see Beyond the Pale, completely original but inspired by that great work in the 60s by Peter Cook, Dudley Moore and the like, and Henry Daw. Thanks very much for coming into Rutland Radio. Hope everything goes well for you, and as you say, plenty of chances to see this between now and February.
That's right. Thank you, Rob. Many thanks.
Highlights from the past 7 days, the Rutland Radio podcast.
My name is Manjinder Jagdev, and I'm the event director here at Rutland Water Park Run.
And here we are on Boxing Day on the 10th Park Run at Rutland Water. How's it gone?
It's gone extremely well, and in fact, being the 10th run, the last 9 before have been fantastic as well. All credit to our wonderful core team and our volunteers who come in week after week smiling. We always get lots of positive comments and compliments about our volunteers, about how friendly they are. So yeah, we're really pleased. Yeah.
I remember when I met with you on the first meeting of this,
yes.
Back in summertime.
Yeah, June.
And then, of course, in September it all kicked off.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's obviously still got the momentum, and it looks like it's going to continue.
Yeah, I do hope so. People are still coming, even though it's very windy, it's very cold, and we've had rain, although today's absolutely lovely. And we're hoping that it will be a thriving park run through to the summer. Summer will be gorgeous, especially with this beautiful scenic route, you know, with Normanton Church and the water. It's absolutely stunning, and we're very, very lucky. It's a privilege, it really is, to be part of this, yeah.
And we have people of all abilities today, and dogs as well.
Definitely. It goes with Parkrun UK, in fact, international ethos, any age. You can see we had little children here, we had older members here, people who have come for the first time or brand new to Parkrun. And certainly you don't have to be a fast runner. You can walk, as you said, dog walkers, as long as your dog's on a short lead. You can bring your dogs. Babies in buggies are welcome. So Parkrun ethos is the fact that it's for everybody, for all members of the community.
So if people are listening to this and they fancy the idea, it's a 5k run,
yes.
It's free, it's every Saturday from
Yes.
9.
It is indeed. All you have to do, all we ask is that you register with Parkrun UK on the official website. Once you're registered for free, they will email you a personal barcode, and you just have to bring that with you every Saturday, and you can take that with you wherever you decide to do your parkrun, whether it's in Denmark, whether it's in Australia, even in America now. So yeah, you can travel the world with your parkrun barcode ID.
Thanks very much for joining us on Rutland Radio, and well done, on behalf of everyone who helps organise this every week. That must be the toughest thing, the fact that you're getting up far earlier than everyone else. Everyone else breezes in about 2 minutes to, and off they go.
Actually, it's credit, as I said earlier, to the whole team. We have an excellent volunteer coordinator, and week in, week out, they come in smiling. It's a very positive experience, and we hope you, Rob, will come and join us again, and also the Rutland community out there, national, international community out there. Last week we had a family from Australia, Brisbane. It was wonderful. So it's lovely to meet the tourists when they come as well.
Well, that's it for this week's Rutland Radio podcast. If you have any comments, you can email us via the website rutlandradio.co.uk, and we'll have a new version on our website from Monday.
This is a download from Rutland Radio. For more information, go to rutlandradio.co.uk. This is a download from Rutland Radio.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Rutland Radio podcast from rutlandradio.co.uk. This is where you can hear the best bits from the last week.
Hello.
Hello, Harry. It's Rob from Rutland Radio.
Hiya.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. You?
Yeah, good, thank you, yes. Are you all dried out and everyone else dried out from the weekend?
Yeah, just about, I believe, yeah.
So tell us what you did and how long it took.
Yesterday and the day before, we walked from Stamford Boys' 6-1 call room up to the Wash on the other side of Spalding. It took us 2 days to do, with the first day of 20 miles and the second day of 12 miles. With a stop off in Spalding, a quick break, get some dinner down us and a good sleep, and we cracked on the next day. And we did it for Team George, who is our friend injured in South Africa, representing our school player rugby. And we did it to raise awareness and raise some money for his rehabilitation and recovery in the future.
Now, you originally were looking to raise £500, but you did so much better than that.
Yeah, we did. Our initial target was £500, as you said, and now we're currently looking at a grand total of £3,800, which is just phenomenal, and none of us expected that, and the support has been incredible. So
how did you feel when you got to the field, which you said you were planning on reaching the other side of Spalding there?
Yeah, so as we walk into this field, the heavens finally opened on us. The weather forecast said it would, but we just kept cracking on, and we got there, and it was fantastic. Got the pitch we were looking for, and just a sense of joy that we have completed it, and especially for George. And it was just a fantastic fun and awesome experience for everyone.
So how will that money help George then?
The plan is, after 20 days, the money will go to Team George, and that will be spent on whatever the family is needed. At the moment, I believe they're looking for a chair for George to increase his mobility so he can start living a more mobile life.
Thanks very much for joining us on Rutland Radio. Well done for your efforts over the weekend as well.
Thank you very much.
Highlights from the past 7 days, the Rutland Radio podcast.
It's Peter Atkinson, and I am a director of the Grain Store Brewery.
So you've had TV cameras in?
We have, yes. Yeah, it was very exciting. It was a couple of months ago now, but they were with us for just over half a day.
What were they looking for in the grain store then? Victorian bakers. You wouldn't necessarily think it would be here.
No, they got in contact with us originally because they were interested in using our yeast. During Victorian times, during their research, they discovered that the only yeast bakers used to use was brewer's yeast. They discovered that we still brew in a very traditional, old-fashioned methods using open-top fermenters, which they were specifically looking for. So they just got in touch, and we were delighted to help them out, actually.
So how are you in the show? Do you know exactly?
We don't know. We haven't actually seen it yet. I don't even know whether we're in the show, but they let us know that it was on and that we should be watching, so I'm assuming that we are in there at some point. They spent all day with our brewer here, following him round. They did some yeast collection themselves, so it should be interesting. I believe we made the cut, so we should be okay.
The weekly Rutland Radio podcast.
This morning on the show, we've been talking about the unusually mild weather. Lots of daffodils out, snowdrops, a bumblebee sighted in Oakham a couple of days ago. And thanks to Elms Landscapes, who actually put a few pictures and tagged us on social media yesterday and kind of prompted me to talk about this. And who better to talk about it with than Rutland Radio's gardening expert and Barnsdale Gardens, Nick Hamilton. Happy New Year, Nick. And strange weather, isn't it, at the moment?
Happy New Year to you, Sir Rob. Yeah, it's very strange weather. It is, I have to say. It's what you get for them forecasting the coldest winter on record coming up, isn't it, really? And we get the complete opposite. But I mean, it's sending the garden completely mad. It really is. Plants and the wildlife, to be fair, really don't know what they're doing and where they should be.
So, I mean, obviously we can't necessarily tell what's going to happen next. I was just saying to you off air, I think that February is going to be when we get the cold weather. So if that happens, and you know the way that the year has started early, will the plants actually return after that?
It very much depends. I mean, we've been cutting back herbaceous perennials in the border as you do, the ones that have died back, but they're reshooting again. I was looking this morning just out in the garden, and we've got things like the climbing hydrangea roses that are starting. The buds are breaking on them. Now, they're the only buds that they've got there. So if the weather turns really, really cold and damages those, then we could be struggling with those sort of plants. I mean, they're tough old plants, but then, it just depends on how the weather goes. January, February are normally our two coldest months, and it can get really, really bitter. And obviously, when you bear in mind that the foliage that's coming out is the tenderest foliage because it's the new stuff, the combination isn't necessarily going to be very good.
And do you think you should be cutting your lawn?
It's still growing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still growing, so you've got to keep cutting. Obviously, your mower should be on the high setting anyway, and it's literally just taking a bit off the top and just keeping it looking neat and tidy, rather than allow it to get really shaggy and overgrown. But the point is, if it keeps growing, you've got to keep cutting it. The one thing I wouldn't do is I would keep an eye on the weather, and if it does forecast a relatively severe frost, so you're looking at sort of -2, -3 coming up that night, then I certainly wouldn't do it. But obviously, as the weather's going at the moment, we're looking at maybe it going down to 1, 2 or 3 degrees, and that's fine. I'd still keep doing it.
I suppose snow-wise, it was very unusual last year when we had snow around Christmas. It often does get cold, sort of January, February, but is this the mildest that you can remember in the last few years?
Yeah, it's the mildest I can remember. I mean, as I get older, my memory fades a bit, I have to say. But the cold, the sort of the mildest I can remember, and certainly nowhere near any normal winter weather at all. For the certain plants to be as advanced as they are, I've got stuff that should be flowering in April that's coming and looking like it's going to start budding. I mean, that's just completely balmy and something I've never experienced before.
What does it do as far as the business side of things? Because, garden centres around here, must be going through exactly the same thing, wondering, what to stock and when to stock it.
Well, yeah, and the difficulty is, of course, is that people are very wary of like yourself, of the fact that the weather might turn very, very cold, and if they buy stuff and put it in, would it get damaged, would it die, would it whatever? But, as long as you're buying things and putting them in, the things that have come from outside, not things that have been forced on in a greenhouse or anything like that, or a tunnel, if it's outside and it's come from outside, then it stays outside, so therefore it's tough as old boots and fine to go in the ground. But the difficulty is, obviously, when you've got things that you would normally be looking to encourage people with in March, when lots more people are out, there are less people out at this time of year, so potentially and economically it can have a massive impact.
Nick Hamilton of Barnsdale Gardens, thanks very much for joining us on Rutland Radio this morning. Nick will be back tomorrow lunchtime with more gardening advice about 12:30. Well, that's it for this week's Rutland Radio podcast. If you have any comments, you can email us via the website rutlandradio.co.uk, and we'll have a new version on our website from Monday.
This is a download from Rutland Radio. For more information, go to rutlandradio.co.uk. This is a download from Rutland Radio.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Rutland Radio podcast from rutlandradio.co.uk. This is where you can hear the best bits from the last week.
It's Jill. I live in Stamford now.
And tell us your David Bowie connection, because you literally were connected with him, weren't you, for a while?
Yeah, I was, in fact. I was at school at the time. I would have been about 15, 16. I went to the Victoria Hall in Hanley when he was doing the Ziggy Stardust tour. And as he came on with his blue feather boa, I was lucky to be at the front. And I managed to grab hold of it, also touched his foot. I had a bit of a tug of war, and I've still got a handful of the feather boa now. Obviously, it's very precious.
Absolutely.
Along with all the other bits of memorabilia.
1973, of course,
yeah, a long time
the height
ago.
of his fame, and, the height of that new look. No one quite knew what to expect, did they, around then?
Oh, it was pretty amazing, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic.
How do you feel this morning as we remember him? And, you can't believe he's gone, I guess, just like everyone else.
Rather sad, but he was a legend, wasn't he? And he'll still stay in everybody's hearts anyway, won't he?
This is Rutland Radio.
Tell us your story then, children's TV.
In 1985, I went to a school in Maidstone called Seneca High School, and the number 73 TV programme was filmed in the Maidstone studios there. And every year for the 2 years I was there, we auditioned to be a part of a group of regular kids on number 73 with Sandy Toksvig, Andrea Arnold, Neil Buchanan. It was great fun.
Neil went on to have his own art show as well, didn't he? And Sandy Toksvig has certainly had quite a career out of it.
Andrea Arnold's an Academy Award winner.
Right, so they've all actually done really well. Number 73, I always thought was ITV's answer to Why Don't You? Do you know what I mean? It had that gang, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
And you were part of it.
I had some great times. I found a YouTube clip of me recently dancing to the Fine Young Cannibals.
The weekly Rutland Radio podcast.
It's Rutland Radio at breakfast time. I'm Rob Pisani, welcoming to the studio this morning the High Sheriff of Rutland, Andrew Brown. Now, you're going to be joining us a couple of times over the next month to talk about various initiatives, but today, free money for a business that could be listening to us this morning. How good does that sound?
Well, I mean, free money, but of course there's no such thing as a free lunch, Rob, and there are strings attached, but it's not often that you actually get the opportunity to get some money to help your business maybe get off the ground or develop in a way you want it to develop. So this is a project which comes out of the LEADER programme. There's a thing called the Local Action Group, which I'm chairing now, which is charged with giving out £1.3 million of money to Rutland and an area called Greater Peterborough as well. So that's over the next 5 years. This has to be match funded by the business to the tune of 60%. So 40% of your project could be funded by this money, and the minimum amount of grant is £2,500, and the maximum is £50,000. So the total project spend would need to be at least £6,250 or up to £125,000. So it is quite a lot of money, and if you've got a good idea, it really could set you on the road to success.
Now, this is either a new business, this is growing a business idea, a helping hand in some way. It's targeted very much at rural businesses, isn't it? Farms included, but not necessarily exclusively farm diversification or anything like that.
That's right. The prime objective is to create jobs and develop rural businesses and to support the rural economy. And there are 6 priority areas that we've been given to sort of target. The first one being increasing farm productivity, and then support for micro and small businesses which aren't necessarily agricultural, and also on-farm diversification. So you could be diversifying into a farm shop or something like that, which isn't necessarily agriculture per se. And also we're looking at boosting rural tourism, providing rural services and cultural and heritage activity. And also the last one is increasing forestry production, because trees are a great asset, obviously. And on our farm, we planted a thing called a community woodland back in 2004. So we might be able to put in an application and get a bit of money to improve the productivity of that woodland. So these are all things that are in the mix. And to promote this, we're having a launch in the new Rutland Agricultural Society Pavilion. That's taking place on the 8th of February from 6:30 to 9 p.m. I'm chairing that meeting, and it'll be an opportunity to talk to people from the local action group and from the Leader programme. And the company that's actually running the programme is a company called Opportunity Peterborough. So there will be various stands and displays there and various people to talk to, and it'll be a good way of networking, getting to know a little bit more about it. So I think I would encourage anyone who's thinking of expanding their business or has got a really good idea, perhaps doesn't know how to get it off the ground, to turn up on the 8th of February. Just come and have a look, because nothing ventured, nothing gained.
So this is Rutland businesses, as you say, Greater Peterborough as well. So I'm guessing, Stamford and surrounds is going to qualify as well for this.
That's right. There is another one further east for the Greater Peterborough area. I think that's in Peakirk. That's also in February.
So if you think you'd like a share of that and you can make a good case for it, then this evening is at the Rutland Agricultural Society Pavilion, Monday the 8th of February. Now, whether you can get along to that or not, if you'd like further information, there's a website and an email address that you can give us, Andrew.
Yes, leaderfunding.co.uk, and the person to speak to at Opportunity Peterborough is Sheila O'Brien, and telephone numbers 01733 317 404, and it's sheila.o'brien@opportunitypeterborough.co.uk. There's also a link on the Rutland County Council website, so there are lots of ways of accessing this information.
So that's on the 8th of February, an event. You can find out more details online about Leader funding that could help you if you run a business or you'd like to start up a business in Rutland, Stamford or surrounds. And Andrew Brown, High Sheriff of Rutland, thanks for joining us on Rutland Radio today.
Thank you, Rob.
Rutland Radio's best bits on the podcast.
My name's Captain Alex Smith.
Tell us what conditions are like out in Nigeria as you've been before.
You're based in a pretty austere environment. The access to fresh food, running water and even a bed is fairly limited for your duration of your time out there. But the facilities in the camp that you're actually working in are pretty good for the training that we're trying to provide for the Nigerian Army. What
kind of training are you actually doing?
It ranges from basic infantry training to enhancing their medical skills and also doing some counter-terrorism that we obviously learned from Afghanistan and we can provide to them. We also provided bespoke packages in tracking, in reconnaissance and also medical skills that were further than they had at the moment.
How does this come about for anyone who doesn't understand the way the military works? How is the British Army involved in this?
Well, the British government and Nigerian government are very strong allies, and obviously we're committed to try and fight the terrorist faction, which is Boko Haram, and facilitating the Nigerian army to do that is obviously beneficial to both parties.
My name's Daniel Davis Prevost and I'm a full corporal.
Tom Warden, a corporal.
And tell us about your tour to Nigeria, what you're expecting to find.
Well, pretty much like the last time. It was a good experience last time. It built my personal skills and development on a wider range, and I'm looking forward to doing the same again this time in a different job role, because last time I was a Lance Corporal and this time I'm going as a Corporal, so I'm looking forward to it.
So it's very much a two-way street, you're giving expertise to the Nigerian army as well as actually training as well.
Yeah, so as well as training themselves, I'm also enhancing my skills and adapting to different ways of teaching methods, which is also really good for personal development.
How long are you expecting to be out there for?
On an average to about 8 weeks.
What are conditions like for you? It sounds like it's quite sparse, you're quite remote where you are.
I wouldn't say it was remote. We got looked after by the Nigerians, and when we arrived, we were staying in their officers' mess, so we did get looked after. Obviously, it's nothing compared to what we have over here, but we were looked after, and they did a lot for us.
Lance Corporal Cropper. Private Masawi.
Tell us about this tour that you're going on. Do you consider this to be, a challenging time in the army here?
No, not really. We're just going out there to obviously train and support the Nigerian forces because, with their allies. So, we're just going out there to pass on some experiences with previous tours to bring them along and help them for the future.
Is this your first time going out there?
Yeah, it's my first time, yeah.
So it's very much something that both sides, I guess, can get something from, you passing on your experiences and then obviously, the Nigerian army being on the front line.
Yeah, it is pretty much the same thing, really, for me anyway.
Highlights from the past 7 days, the Rutland Radio podcast.
And as we were mentioning this morning on Rutland Radio, this afternoon at Stylistics in Stamford, there's a charity head shave going on. And 5-year-old Sydney is taking part, and also Sydney's mum, Claire Mount, who joins us this morning. So how did this all come about, Claire? Because this is very sad circumstances, really, isn't it, as to why you're doing it?
Yes, it is. I just wanted to do something on this day because 3 years ago we lost my nephew Owen. So I just wanted to do something that's nice to remember him by, and to donate our hair to help other little boys and girls that obviously are going through bad situations and they're losing their hair. We're also raising money for Click Sargent. I chose that charity because they helped my sister. They've got a brilliant house at Addenbrooke's that help parents, so my sister was able to stay there while Owen was in Addenbrooke's. So yeah, I just wanted to give them something back, really.
Well, that's it for this week's Rutland Radio podcast. If you have any comments, you can email us via the website, rutlandradio.co.uk, and we'll have a new version on our website from Monday.
This is a download from Rutland Radio. For more information, go to rutlandradio.co.uk. This is a download from Rutland Radio.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the Rutland Radio podcast from rutlandradio.co.uk. This is where you can hear the best bits from the last week. It's Rutland Radio at breakfast time. I'm Rob Pisani. Lovely to welcome into the studio for the first time Zoe Crowson. Now, Zoe is Phoebe's mum, as in the Phoebe Research Fund. How did this all come about that actually you established this charity?
Well, I established it after Phoebe's third operation. She was recategorised from what they class as mild EB to intermediate, and it turned out to be a little bit more significant than they first thought, which means that she unfortunately has a lifetime in and out of hospital, but actually frequent surgery. So I thought at this stage, it's really time to crack on and actually do something about it, raise awareness. And also up until school age, it's been quite difficult because she's been very labour intensive.
So what actually does Phoebe have then? What's her condition?
What she's got is recessive dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. And basically, in a nutshell, she's fragile and it happens to be the third skin layer down. So knocks and bumps, 3 layers come away, which is the equivalent to a third-degree burn, and her skin blisters spontaneously. And the unfortunate thing is, with the blisters, they're not self-limiting, so they can become incredibly big. So you spend all of your time going back to them throughout the day and actually throughout the night. But it also affects her internal linings, which are obviously her whole digestive tract, her esophagus, hence she needs a throat stretch every few months because her throat narrows, and her bowels, and obviously toileting.
How old is she now?
Phoebe's 6. She was 6 in September. She's doing really well, all things considered. She's incredibly positive and, just gets on with it. It's not just about Phoebe. I've met a lot of mums over the years, and ultimately it's a life-limiting disease. So therefore, you feel quite helpless as a mum. And what you want to do really is do as much as you can to raise awareness, raise the funds, and ultimately get that cure that's needed.
So that's really what you're hoping for with the fund itself?
Yeah, I mean, me on my own, it's going to be very difficult to achieve that, but the amount of local support that I've got already.
Now, in Waitrose in Stamford, if you happen to shop there, you're one of the 3 charities this month.
Yes, Phoebe's very proud of that. She's got her brand loyalty already. Every time we go past anywhere near Waitrose, it's, "Mummy, we need to go to Waitrose." She's telling everybody at the school. It's quite amusing, really, but she's very proud of the fact. And it gives her also a bit of a boost because there are days where, you completely despair, and it can be very upsetting for her and myself, and it's something that keeps us positive. The amount of local support that we've had, it really gives us something to aim for, and it keeps you kind of on track, really.
Who else is raising funds for you at the moment? What else are you doing?
We've got quite a lot of things in the pipeline. I'm continually doing presentations. We've got Santander in Peterborough have just made us their charity of the year, which is wonderful. And like I say, it's a lot of the groundwork going in at the moment for future events. Plus I have my own annual dinner, which will be October the 7th this year, and I've got a lot of support from the local businesses like the William Cecil.
Which is where you held it last year, wasn't it? So presumably it's there again, is it?
It's there again, possibly a casino this time, and various fun bits going on, and it's just a really nice kind of anchor for the charity. And it's getting other parents involved. But it's not just the parents, it's the children that want to get involved. And I'm quite blown away by the local schools. In fact, all of the children are, almost putting aside their pocket money and doing all sorts of things. There's a little chap in Phoebe's class. He's a smashing fellow. He's given up chocolate for all of January. I mean, I'd struggle to do that myself.
Me too.
Let alone a little 5-year-old boy, but
what's
it's
his
amazing.
name? We should give him a mention. Is it Cocktail?
Yes, yeah. It's Monty.
Well done, Monty. That's
well
an amazing
Monty.
effort. And you had quite a lot of support in the Stamford Santa Fun run as well.
Yes, there are a few children that ran for Phoebe. little Georgie Thomas, and also Ollie Williams, who managed to raise over £3,500, which is simply incredible.
That is incredible. How old is he?
He's all of 5. You know, it's going on to
Raising
be a budding...
over £3,000 for the charity.
Fundraiser, yes.
What does Phoebe say to all this then?
Oh, she thinks it's incredible. I mean, she has no real concept of money or monetary value yet. To her, it's a figure. It's not that. She's blown away by people's support. It's when we've gone out to visit schools, you know, to say thank you because they've raised money doing their nativity play. It's Empingham and Great Casterton. And she walks in and they're all so lovely. To Phoebe, she's just gathering friends all the time, so it's not the monetary value to her, although she does understand it's for her charity. And obviously the more people do, the closer she gets to having that cure, which is obviously important to her because she's getting to an age where she's more self-aware and obviously not as included in society as she likes. That's nobody's fault. It's just unfortunately her skin holds her back. It's the children that are going back to their parents saying, look, one of our little friends happens to have this, and it's surprising actually because now I have the parents obviously come and ask me about Phoebe, and off the back of that, you know, it's amazing how children just get it and the empathy that they have as well. And Phoebe being one of those, because if anybody so much as, you know, traps her finger or anything like a little girl did at Copt Hill, she gets very concerned, and they all kind of try and look after each other, don't they?
So if people would like to help you and actually show their support, then how do they get in touch with you?
We're on Facebook under the Phoebe Research Fund, Twitter, and we've got a website as well. And, you know, just directly via email or call. And obviously I'll support as much as I can with the people who are supporting me.
Zoe Crowston, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's lovely to meet you at last. I know we have spoken on the phone before, but thanks for coming in. And maybe next time, actually, maybe you can bring Phoebe in if that's possible.
That would be quite funny because she would take over, but yes,
yeah, I don't mind people taking over, but thank you.
She has an opinion. Thank you.
The weekly Rutland Radio podcast.
It's Rutland Radio breakfast time. I'm Rob Pisani. Now, our area's got quite a history of harp music. You know, if you think of all the churches in the Stamford area, of course, Ellie Turner as well from Stamford, who travels all over the world with her harp from the town. And we have this weekend the most royal harpist you could possibly get, because actually she was the Prince of Wales official harpist in 2007, played at the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's wedding in April 2011, and she's coming to Stamford Corn Exchange. Claire Jones, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
How on earth do you become a royal harpist then and actually get that job?
Well, it's a position that's open to anyone who has Welsh connections and roots. As you can probably tell, I'm from Pembrokeshire originally, and so I auditioned for the position in front of a panel of experts to begin with, and then I went forward and did a private audition for Prince Charles, where he literally stood about a foot away from the pillar of the harp, the very front of the harp. And later on that day, I found out I was to be the next harpist, and it was a position I held for 4 years. It was originally meant for 2, but he reinstated me for another 2 years. And I did about 180 engagements for the royal family, including things like one-to-one performances for Her Majesty the Queen, where she'd come in the room and I'd perform for her, and also big state dinners and gala performances, solo appearances, and of course the biggest of them all really was the royal wedding for Prince William and Catherine Middleton, because they personally asked me to perform in Buckingham Palace, the private part of their day. I got to speak to them lots on the day as well, and Catherine also chose all the music that she wanted me to play from all my CDs and stuff, and one of which I'm actually performing on Saturday at the Corn Exchange.
How wonderful. Now, your album, The Girl with the Golden Harp, went to #1 in the classical charts. Your new album is Journey, and it really has been a huge journey between those two, hasn't it? Because of, personal reasons, I guess.
It has indeed, because following on from my time as the royal harpist, I finished in 2011. I went then through a period of lots of travelling and different things, and it was a very busy time in my life, and I started to really experience quite a few symptoms actually in my health. For example, fatigue and migraines and headaches, and actually pain in my body as well, like muscular pain. And all these things sort of built up over a few years really, and it got to a point where it was just not possible to control the pain as such, and it got to a point where Chris, my husband, he took me into A&E, and I had a seizure when I was there, actually, and stopped me in my tracks completely, and nobody really knew what was wrong with me at the time. But eventually they diagnosed me with something called ME chronic fatigue, which quite a few people, I'm sure your listeners might know of, especially friends and family. People tend to know somebody with it. Years ago, people wouldn't believe that it was a real illness, but they've proved now that it is a physical illness. And also, there's about 250,000 people in the UK suffering from it right now. I was 27 at the time. It doesn't matter what age you are. I've even heard of children having it. I literally had to stop for a few months. I was bedbound. Fortunately, after that, I did actually meet 3 practitioners privately that managed to help me then over an 18-month period to actually come back again. And now I'm pleased to say I'm fully fit and healthy, and I'm able to undergo, normal life, really. So the music that I've recorded on both the albums you mentioned previously, but Journey in particular, is all associated with the different parts of my recovery. The very beginning, which was the calm part where I had to stop and do nothing, there's some very beautiful tunes, slow, relaxing stuff to represent that. And there's also some upbeat, vigorous pieces as well, which represent me now, really, in full health. And that's what I'll be performing on Saturday.
And it's not just you on stage, is it, on Saturday?
No, it's not just me on stage. I've also got Chris Marshall, my husband. He is a percussionist, actually, and he does a lot of West End shows and recordings. But he also is a composer and an arranger, so he's done all of the arrangements for the albums. And it's got lighting and video walls. We've also got some young musicians from Stamford, and also Ellie, who you mentioned at the very beginning, Ellie Turner. Her pupils are performing the harp as well in the concert. And there'll also be some Arthur Mello students as well from the school in the local area by Tess Hammond. She's the musical director there.
How wonderful. Thank you very much for telling us all about it. Claire Jones at Stamford Corn Exchange this Saturday. Thanks for talking to us at Rutland Radio.
Thank you.
Rutland Radio's best bits on the podcast.
Beautiful part of Britain. Lovely frosty morning this morning with amazing sunrise. And Rutland Water is 40 years old this year. I know Angling Water would like to hear from you on what Rutland Water means to you. Will Kirstein from Angling Water joins me this morning. Will, amazing tourist attraction. We've heard this morning, that people would love to have kept the villages, the farmland, but, somewhere needed to be found to actually store all this water to actually give homes towards Peterborough, wasn't it? All the water that they needed?
Yeah, it was indeed. Morning, Rob. Morning. The chilly one today. Yeah, the reservoir was created. It was 40 years ago this year since construction was complete, and it was a shame, of course, to lose the villages and the farmland. But as you quite rightly say, the space was needed to provide water for over 1 million homes. The water in Rutland Water goes to. It goes as far afield as Milton Keynes, would you believe? Peterborough, Bedford, down into Cambridgeshire. So, yeah, it really is serving people with a vital resource in that it's providing us with our drinking water on a day-to-day basis. So absolutely crucial to the sort of surrounding areas, really.
Although it was man-made, some people have said, well, it still looks it, but I don't think so. I really think it looks like it's always been there. And you think of some of the infrastructure, such as the nature reserve, the amazing bird fairs and the leisure attractions, the thousands of people that use Rutland Water every year. Yeah, I think one of the sort of the most brilliant things about Rutland Water's build, if you like, at the time is actually how well it did just that. It sits perfectly in the landscape. The dam's a clay dam with grass growing on one side rather than a big sort of concrete wall, so it looks completely natural. And as you say, the way the site's developed over the years with the facilities that are here, so, events like Bird Fair and the Nature Reserve, the Ospreys, they've all kind of become synonymous with Rutland, really, and crucial to the county of Rutland and very much put Rutland on the map, I think. So what of the future then? I mean, I can't imagine we're ever going to lose Rutland Water. Could we see it expand, do you think? Do you think it's actually about as big as it could get? Obviously, we had the new lagoons, didn't we, a couple of years ago for the wildlife side? Yeah, we did indeed. I mean, there's always going to be an increased pressure on demand for water. The population's growing, so, with ever more people are going to need more drinking water. We're certainly never going to lose Rutland Water. I can't ever imagine that happening.
But then again, that said, there also is a limit as to how much water we can take out of it. So how we meet the future sort of challenges on water resourcing and water demand is one for a little bit further down the road, really. But from a recreational and access point of view, again, it's a part of the community now, and we're not going to be sort of closing it off to the public or anything drastic like that. In fact, quite the opposite. We want to make the site more accessible. We want to engage with the local communities. We want people to come down and get a kayak and paddle out on the water and enjoy it, or go to the nature reserve and see the ospreys, or come and have a go at fishing, or whatever, just come and ride your bike and have a picnic next to the water, whatever it might be. So we're certainly going to work to keep improving access and to keep improving the activities and attractions that we've got on site.
I guess parking charges have always been part of it. There's people who've posted on our social media saying, because of what it gives to the whole country, really, people should be able to park there for free from Rutland. I can't imagine that being practical. You need that money, don't you, to actually run Rutland Water?
Yeah, I mean, the car parking charges that we take are put straight back into the running of the site. As you can imagine, it's a massive site. 26 and a bit miles of tracks and nearly 30 miles of fencing. So the maintenance is huge, and indeed the maintenance bill that goes with it is huge. So all of our car park revenues are invested straight back into maintaining the site.
And is it still Europe's largest man-made lake? Does it still hold that record, do you know?
Well, it depends how you measure it. So by surface area, not quite. By volume, yeah, we're just a little bit more in terms of volume than sort of Kielder Water. But it depends on how you measure it.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on Rutland Radio. Happy 40th anniversary and birthday. I know there'll be events at Rutland Water this year. The Steam Fair is already in the calendar for the end of June. I know there'll be more events to come, which we'll mention here at Rutland Radio. Good to have you on this morning.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Have a good day.
You too.
This is Rutland Radio.
It's Rutland Radio at breakfast time, welcoming back the High Sheriff of Rutland, Andrew Brown. Now, Andrew, when you took the role of High Sheriff, there was one area that you wanted to explore that, as far as I know, no other High Sheriff has actually explored to date.
Well, that's right.
Not officially, anyway.
No. One of the hats that I wear, other than my very strange High Sheriff's hat, is that I'm a trustee of the Leicester Comedy Festival. What I'm trying to do is get one or two of the acts and events to come over into Rutland as part of the festival. Perhaps some of your listeners don't know too much about the Leicester Comedy Festival, but it is a really big festival, 780 events over a 3-week period, starting on the 3rd of February. I think I'm right in saying it's the biggest comedy festival outside of Edinburgh, certainly in this country, possibly in Europe and possibly in the world, I'm not sure, but it is a really big event and there really is something for everyone. And what I've organised is a High Sheriff's charity comedy night, which is going to take place in the museum. It was originally going to take place in the castle, but of course the castle was shut, and I was going to call it Comedy in the Castle, but that had to go out the window, so I thought maybe Mirth in the Museum would be a good title for it. It's on Wednesday the 10th of February at 7:30, and we've got 4 comedians who are reasonably well known. I've done some TV stuff and radio stuff, and 3 of them I've already checked out, and I must say they are particularly funny. And I'll be dressed in my very funny High Sheriff's outfit. I'm going to say a few words to start with because it's a charity comedy event and it's in aid of Warning Zone at Leicester, which is a children's charity which teaches children about the various problems they can encounter if they play on the railway line or play around electricity substations, things like that.
Yeah, it's an amazing facility.
It is,
actually.
yeah, it's great. And an awful lot of the kids from Rutland do go.
Well, sort of 10 years old.
That's right, 10, 11 years old, yeah. When I go round to the schools as High Sheriff, I always try and encourage them to go because it really has made a difference. And the fire service, when I visited them, said that they'd seen a marked reduction in the amount of accidental fires from children playing with matches because they'd been to the warning zone and it taught them how dangerous it is. So it really is worth going. There's £12 a ticket. The best way to do it, I would suggest, is to download a ticket offline. You can print it off yourself, so there's no need to go anywhere or have them sent in the post. Mm-hmm. And they're available from www.comedy-festival.co.uk, or you can ring up. The tickets are administered by the Curve in Leicester. The number there is 0116 242 3595.
So you'll see obviously lots of Leicester Comedy Festival events as well, but what obviously you're looking for is to get as many people as you can to fill the Rutland Museum on that night, the 10th of February.
Absolutely, it'd be great to see a sellout crowd. I mean, we've got a great sense of humour here in Rutland, and I think this, in the middle of February, when it's dark and cold and wet and miserable, this could give you a bit of a boost.
So who's on the bill on that night?
Carly Smallman is the compere. She's done some TV stuff. She was on Rob Brydon's show. And then we've got Chris Betts. He was the Comedian of the Year, finalist at the Comedy Festival last year. And then a chap who I particularly like is someone called Darren Walsh, and he is a pun artist. Although you may think that puns make you groan, but some of them are really, really clever. He's a chap who must be 6'8" or 9". I would think he's a massively tall guy, and he's very, very funny. And then we've got someone called Lloyd Griffiths. And these are people that you may indeed see on live at the Apollo.
So it's £12 a ticket. It's the High Sheriff's Comedy Night on the 10th of February at Rutland County Museum. If you'd like tickets, comedy-festival.co.uk. And High Sheriff of Rutland, Andrew Brown, thanks for joining us again on Rutland Radio.
Thanks, Rob.
Highlights from the past 7 days, the Rutland Radio Podcast.
It's Rutland Radio at breakfast time. I'm Rob Pisani. You know, we've been talking about Rutland Water being 40 years old. We popped this video on our Facebook page that the local TV news had done. And the amount of comments we had of people remembering what it was like before, and also actually 40 years on, there's still a kind of bittersweet taste at the fact that this reservoir was forced upon us. With me this morning is someone who actually grew up as a farming family of generations in the farmhouse that was part of the compulsory purchase order in Lower Hambleton. Wendy Ledbetter, as you are now, you were a sharp
I certainly was.
farmer's
yes.
daughter.
Yes, I was.
How long the family actually had that then?
3 generations. My father was actually born there.
And what was the countryside like? Because looking at the pictures, it does look idyllic. It just looks very peaceful.
It was. It was very, very beautiful. Lots of green fields, rivers, streams. It was a great place for people to go walking and just enjoy the countryside.
When did your family first know that you could be the subject of this compulsory purchase order whilst they were looking at getting this reservoir?
It was in the summer of 1965. I was going to start school at Rutland High School for Girls, and we had to do a project. And my father found a piece in the NFU Journal which was talking about a proposed reservoir for Rutland. That's where it all started.
Now, you've got quite an archive from your family. Just having a look at some of the papers here. Giant reservoir scheme will make frightful mess of the county is one headline in the Mercury here. Also, reservoir could turn Oakham into holiday resort. They're trying desperately to give a positive spin to this, aren't they? But then, you know, you've got this as well in the Farmers' Journal of the time from the NFU. The strength of opposition was absolutely staggering.
Yes, it was. Lots of people, especially the farmers, because where were they going? What was going to happen?
The quote here actually just in this piece about the proposed reservoirs in Rutland, because at this time they hadn't quite worked out where they were going to have it. You were telling me that actually the other side of the Linden Road could well have been the location.
It could have been Manton. It was a choice between Manton and obviously what is the Rutland Reservoir now. But they chose Empingham because it was cost effective, really.
It was the gouache rather than the chater.
The gouache rather than the chater.
Just have a listen to this quote here. The Welland and Nene River Authority are showing great determination. We must show greater. Rutland did not defeat the Boundary Commission by being afraid of the powers arrayed against them. We can win this battle if all concerned have fire in their bellies and iron in their souls. This was written in 1968. So years and years of meeting after meeting. When was it actually that you got word that your home was going to be taken away?
I think it was shortly afterwards, in the later 60s. My father was on the council, so he got to know what was happening. He went to various meetings, and we actually saw a mock-up at the East of England show that the Oakham schoolboys had done. So that was the first time we actually saw it as it was going to be, which was quite shocking, really.
We got the actual compulsory purchase document here. This all happened at the Crown Hotel in Oakham, as it was back then, now Crown House, of course. And they just basically sold off these parts as lots.
Yes. Obviously then my father and the family had to start looking for a new farm. Eventually they found a farm in North Luffenham, and the whole family moved there.
And when they actually bought the land, the farm, from your family. It actually took quite a number of years, didn't it, before actually anything happened?
Yes, it did.
You were actually living there and your family were actually renting it back.
They had to rent some of the land back that they used, obviously, for the sheep and the cattle and things like that on parts around the Rutland Water. It was excellent farming land, and this is one of the reasons it was so sad that it had to go. The farm was actually demolished in 1975.
So one of the last to go?
One of the last to go, yes. And I think it's one of the deepest points as well.
When you go back to Rutland Water now, how does it feel walking around, remembering where you used to be? How close can you actually get to where you used to live?
If I go to Middle Hambleton and look out towards Linden Hill, I think there's a little piece that comes up called Brown's Island, and that's very close to where I used to live. To start off with, both my sister and I were absolutely heartbroken at having to leave. It's very hard when somebody tells you you have to leave your home. But I do take my grandchildren round, and I do enjoy going round, and I do love it when the water recedes so I can see more.
Can imagine. Wendy, thank you very much for joining us on Rutland Radio. I'm sure you're not the only one. You know, anyone who remembers pre-1970, say, would remember that, the idyllic countryside, what it was like before. And, you know, there's a lot of similar views around here, isn't there?
Oh, there is. There is. Even now, which is quite surprising.
Thanks very much for coming into Rutland Radio today.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for this week's Rutland Radio podcast. If you have any comments, you can email us via the website, rutlandradio.co.uk, and we'll have a new version on our website from Monday.
This is a download from Rutland Radio. For more information, go to rutlandradio.co.uk.